And joining us now on This Is the Day is Mark Riedemann, who is the Director of Public Affairs and Religious Freedom from Aid to the Church in Need International. And thank you so much, Mark, for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kevin, for having me.
And I should mention also a program that we run here, Where God Weeps. Mark is also on that as well.
Oh, it's a great privilege that you run the program. It's for us a great way of enabling the local church, the local bishops in Africa, Asia, all around the world to be able to tell their stories.
Yes,
and that way to build the body of Christ.
And it's so important now, especially in the world today, too. And maybe if you could just start off, Mark, telling us a little bit about Aid to the Church in Need International, and maybe get into a little bit about that in case people don't know.
Sure.
And then we'll jump into this religious freedom report.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Aid to the Church in Need has been around a long time, 75 years. We were established in 1947 by a Dutch priest, Father Werenfrid van Straten. And he saw the decimation after the Second World War of the Germans. Germany was completely destroyed. And the millions that were flooding back into Germany from Central and Eastern Europe. And he thought, what can I do? How can I help these people? Of course, at the time it was really politically incorrect because these were the enemies of all the other. But he said, I want to help these people. And so he started going around. He went first to a little village called Vinkt, and he said to the parish priest, I want to preach at all 6 masses, Saturday, Sunday. And the priest looked at him, and Vinkt is in Belgium, and Vinkt was a village where they had the Germans a policy, if one soldier was killed, they would kill 10 of the local people as a revenge. And the priest said, you can try. Anyway, Father Werenfrid preached every single Mass. And the people were very calm, but they got up and they left the church at the end of the Mass. They didn't give him anything, and they didn't say a word. At the end of the Sunday night, when he went back to the parish house, he realized, Lord, this idea is not going to work. It was a mistake. And then came a knock on the door, and there was a little old lady who said, Father Werenfrid, I lost my husband and I lost my son in the revenge action of the Germans against this village. But I believe in what you're trying to do. And she gave him, and for him it was the symbol of the widow's might. Yeah. And he understood that he had a mission. And since then the organization has grown. We are now active in about 145 countries around the world. And we support 6,000 projects. And the idea is really to focus on the pastoral needs of the church. What do I mean is supporting seminarians, supporting church construction, supporting sisters, everything to help keep the faith alive. And this is where we see our niche and our work and what God has called us to do.
And it's amazing work that you do, Mark, too. And I know this is an amazing piece of work as well. And this is very important. Religious Freedom, the World Report. I wonder if you could maybe talk to us a little bit about this, maybe some of the highlights that are in this report so that people get an idea of what's going on around the world.
Sure, thank you. Well, we've been producing this enormous report, and it's a monster. It's 900 pages. I mean, it's really... We've been doing it since 1999, so it's our 23rd year producing this publication. And the idea was really from one of our Italian directors who said, how can we speak about Christian persecution if we don't speak about the other side of the coin, which is the right of every individual to be able to choose his or her faith. So it's not a publication addressing the community, it's the individual right based on the 1948 UN Declaration of Human Rights, Article 18, about religious freedom. So the concept is there, and we assess 196 countries, the major religious traditions, and we look at the law. Has the law changed? Then we look, what are the incidents of violations of religious freedom over the last 2 years, the attacks, and then finally, what is a prognosis going forward? So this is the book. This here, what we have is just the executive summary, which is about 50 pages. And coming to your second point, what would be some of the highlights? I guess lowlights, if you will. It's really, what we see is that each year seems to be like a prophetic work or word of what is going to happen in the next 2 years. And so what was in the last report 2 years ago now, we see as becoming more acute and more intense. For example, we identify 3 major themes, if you will, that have occurred in the last years and have grown. And one is Islamism, which we see principally in Africa. I'll come back to that. We see authoritarian governments, China, Eritrea, North Korea. And finally, what we call ethno-religious nationalism. And ethno-religious nationalism is really a fusion of the race, the religion, and the country, the national identity, and the manipulation, the political manipulation of religion for a political goal. And I guess if I was to focus on this, I would talk about India as being the most recent example, the biggest example, affecting the most number of people, 1.2 billion people. And it's the concept that, for example, Prime Minister Modi is promoting, which is India should be for Indians and Indians should be Hindu. Goes back to a decades-old philosophy of what we call Hindutva, which effectively means that all other minorities, whether Muslims or Christians, are de facto second-class citizens. So this is where we see this kind of phenomenon, these kind of phenomena growing.
Yeah, and I know we're just about out of time, but maybe just a couple of other places, Mark, if you could, that maybe people should know about.
Sure. Well, very briefly, I would like to focus, I would suppose the biggest concern today is sub-Saharan Africa. Okay. The violence of the combination of corruption, poverty, all these human elements, social justice elements, have been infiltrated by groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. ISIS and Al-Qaeda, they don't bring in new problems. They just go in and exacerbate existing problems. So they bring jihadism into these. And we've seen, for example, that in the last 3 years, the number of refugees or IDPs in Africa has grown by 400%. 400% over 3 years. And the number of people facing starvation has grown from 3.6 million to 10.3 million. And these are UN figures. So the impact of this jihadism on sub-Saharan Africa, and really, I've spoken to our expert back at the headquarters, and he says the West is losing. France is pulling out, Russia with the Wagner group is coming in, and these poor civilians, these poor Christians, who are targeted by the jihadists in many of these countries, are at the mercy of these violent groups.
Very important things for people to realize and to know and to keep up to date on what's going on around the world too. Religious Freedom in the World Report, very important. Mark, if people want to find out more about Aid to the Church in Need International or right here in this country, I know a lot of people would probably want to help and support what you're doing. Where would they go?
Well, we have a New York office, you're right, and the web address is www.churchinneed.org. Churchinneed.org, all one word. And that's the best place. They can find out more information about what's going on in the universal church with a view to helping keep the faith alive in all these areas where Christians are persecuted.
Thank you so much, Mark, for being
Kevin,
with us.
It's been a privilege.
We appreciate it. We're going to go back now to the rest of This is the Day.